Good morning and welcome to Monday Morning. I'm George Nordhaus, and this week is one that will probably uh, bother a lot of people, and it should, because it's a wonderful, wonderful look at what we're really doing in dealing with producers. Al Diamond, of course, is Agency Consulting Group. We work very closely together on many things. Uh, has talked to me about the realities of producer compensation. He says, a lot of agencies are really compensating programs that are working against them, have compensation programs for producers primarily. And I said, what are you talking about, Al? Well, and then he began to tell me. I said, holy mackerel, we got to get this out there, and it's going to be well, that's going to drive him a little crazy. Well, at any rate, let me tell you about Al Diamond. You've heard him here a lot. He's one of our big speakers. He's the agency consulting guy. He's been in it for many, many years. Well, 40 some odd years. There, he and I've been working together probably 40 of those 45 years on a lot of different things. And I certainly recommend him very highly as a consultant, and always have and always will. But he's got a wonderful firm there in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and it is but he's all around the country, everywhere you can think, and he does the pipeline. And I'll tell you more about the pipeline later, but that's a definitely a one of the finest newsletters monthly on agency management that anybody puts out. So, Al, let's talk about the realities of this thing. What is a perception? What is reality? What are you talking about?
Hello, George. What we found is that the way that most insurance agents pay their producers is really leading them for the producers to achieve goals that are not necessarily the goals of the agency. And this title is appropriate. Perception becomes reality. What is our perception and what is the producer's perception of how they get paid? We start out by the traditional new business and renewal commission rates. Historically, we've paid more for new business, less for renewal, because the assumption is that it's harder to gain new business than it is renewals. But let me ask you a question, George.
Yeah.
Do you think renewals are easy to keep now, or
Oh,
have
yeah.
they become more difficult over the
Oh,
years?
well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's obviously more difficult, and the reason is, of course, there's so much competition, the commoditization of our business, the Geicos of the world, and it's getting worse rather than better. I think it's very, very hard to constantly keep that renewal situation. Don't you?
Especially in commercial lines.
Yep.
I find producers all over the United States and brokers in Canada, we serve both countries,
Hmm.
they're having the same problems. They're spending as much time, if not more, with their existing clients, making sure that their renewals are secure than they are handling new business. So why are we still paying based on new business versus renewals when that's not our goal? The end result of paying higher new business and lower renewal commissions is that renewals have become an annuity income for producers. They basically live off their renewals. And eventually, what happens when the bulk of commissions of their compensation comes from renewals rather than new business? I'll tell you what happens. The producers become RIP, and that's not rest in peace. That's retired in place. They're living well off their renewals, and they either slow or stop generating new business because their compensation comes from the existing book of business. And so suddenly we have the people that we hired to sell insurance and do what the agency needs. In most agencies, by the way, the agency's goal is to grow their book of business. We end up paying for maintaining business instead of for growing the book of business that we have.
Hmm.
And that's a problem. And even beyond that, many agencies still pay producers renewal commission rates on personal lines. That seems really weird because in some agencies, they actually code their new business to producers who have never met, let alone sold or built relationships with those client bases in personal lines. Why are we paying commissions? Because the producer expects to gain an annuity income from that book of business.
Just doesn't make any sense, does it? And you don't realize it. I think there's going to be a tremendous move. We already begin to see it to not get those producers out of that situation.
Exactly, and a lot of agencies are no longer paying producers renewal commissions on personal lines, which is a mixed blessing because it makes the agency more money, but it stops the producer from looking at personal lines as a part of the whole. And our compensation program, the one that I'll explain in a couple of minutes,
Okay.
incorporates personal lines, commercial lines, life insurance, health insurance, everything into a producer's concept of building relationships with the client instead of selling insurance.
Got it.
And that's what we would like to get accomplished here. So the objective of most agencies for their producers is simply to grow the book of business, and not just for a year or two, but grow the book of business consistently for the entire career of the producers. The unfortunate part is that paying new and renewal commissions actually counters the growth objective of the agency, because the producers instead seek to build a renewal book of business that will sponsor their future instead of growing the book of business on behalf of the agency. So what we want to do here, and this is going to come out in short terms because explaining the entire program would take days, not minutes.
That's for sure.
But we need to incent producers to grow the agency's book of business. So here are the big three items, the things that I'd like agents to concentrate on, and we can provide them a lot more information and certainly help in doing this if they like. First of all, pay your producers on growth. Instead of new and renewal commissions, shift over to base and growth compensation. What that means is that if a producer has generated $200,000 of gross income, I only talk in commissions, I don't talk in premiums. I can't spend premium dollars, I can only spend commission dollars in an agency. So if a producer has generated $200,000 last year in gross commissions for the agency, that's new business and renewals, personal, commercial, everything, then he's going to get a base compensation, a percentage, either as commissions, as draw, or as salary for delivering to the agency that same level of commission this year. And that commission can come from new business. It can come from endorsements. It can come from renewals. It can come from rate increases. It can come from anywhere. Basically what we're saying is the sooner you hit that $200,000 level, the sooner you break into a growth compensation, which is a higher percentage. Now we're not paying on new business and renewals anymore. We're paying on base and growth compensation.
Wow, that's this whole thing is, if I had to put a title on it, I'd say understanding your agency. I suspect that most agency managers don't know. I mean, I can just see their confusion right now. What's this guy talking about?
Well, I'd love to say this is revolutionary, but it's not. It's evolutionary. We've been working on this for the last 20 years, and the agents who have this certainly understand it and appreciate it.
I think so.
The second part of this three-legged stool of paying producers is pay more for your productive producers than for your less productive producers. This is tiered compensation. And guys, it isn't brain surgery. Somebody who generates $700,000 a year in commissions is worth a lot more to you than someone who generates $100,000. Both of them take up time of your staff. Both of them deliver product and are seeing customers, but one is much more profitable than the other. So why are you paying the same percentage commission to each of them? So what we do is we tier compensation based on something that is unique to every individual insurance agency. There's no commonality here in the industry, and that's where the breaking points are that a book of business creates substantially more profitability for the agency. What we target is 10% more profitability. When a book of business generates 10% more profitability, I'm going to offer the producer another 5% of commission on both base and growth. And there may be 2 or 3 or 4 tiers in every agency, depending on the agency's normal expensing and profitability. big difference between agencies that make a 5% profit and agencies that make a 15 or 20% profit.
Mm-hmm.
So pay more for productive producers and pay less for beginners or lower productive producers, whether they've been there for a long time or not. That's the second leg of how you should incent producers to grow the agency's book of business.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, there's also a third part of this, which is the penalty phase, because when we're tiering compensation to grow this, to give producers not only more money because they generate more commissions, but a higher commission rate to boot, which is very beneficial to them, very incenting. We also tell producers if they don't grow the agency, their commissions regress by 1% per year until they achieve the position of the customer service rep or the account executive. And that's what happens to producers that have stopped growing and have started going backwards.
They're not going to like this, a lot of them.
Some of them won't like it until they realize that they can make a lot more on the top end and they don't have to worry about the back end as long as they grow. And that growth isn't necessarily in commissions, because commissions are responsive to high and low markets, to hard markets and soft markets, to commission changes. They are involved in a lot of things. So when we talk about growing the book of business, we talk about growing in revenues or in customer count. Customer count is a much more important piece of growth than commissions themselves, because as I said, you have high and low markets. We work in a sine wave in the insurance industry, and so every 4 or 5 years that market's going to pop, and if you have more customers, you make more money automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is we're giving producers rewards for achieving agency goals, and this is fair to the agency, because it's not fair to have compensation benefits for producers, but no penalties for lack of achievement of them. Now, the other thing we have to talk about is RIP producers. Remember, it isn't rest in peace. These are retired and placed producers. Now, if a producer no longer produces business, they could be, in fact, account executives. These are people who have reached their plateau where they're comfortable. They're making enough money for the bass boat and a six-pack, or to feed their families, or their families have all graduated from college and they don't need as much, and they start tapering down their new business activity. And they're basically working a book of business.
Mm-hmm.
Those people aren't producers, they're account execs. And you know what? They're very valuable to us. I'm not denigrating them. I love them. But they shouldn't get paid like producers, because while they're still licensed, and yes, they can still write business, they aren't going to set goals for themselves. They're not going to grow every year. These are the folks who are going backwards, or who are staying stable and not growing the requisite percentage for the agency. Now, they're valuable, but they're not as valuable as producers. That's why account execs don't get paid as much as producers do. And you have another category, George. These are the producers who neither produce nor service. We have customer service reps and account managers who take care of our customers after the sale. And our producers are supposed to build relationships. But if you see a producer in your agency sitting there 5 days a week and maybe goes out once or twice a week, he's not a producer. If he's not servicing either, they're called deadwood. And we have a problem here, because agents are generally very loyal people, and they remember when those producers were active 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, when those producers were bolstering the agency and really supporting them. But does that mean that you have to pay a producer forever for someone who hasn't been productive in 10 or 20 years? Unfortunately, we can't operate agencies, because most of them are small, keeping people who are no longer productive within our grasp. We have to have people who are productive for the agency, from the agency owner down to the receptionist, and that sure includes producers, every day that they're there until they retire. So,
Well,
what do you want a producer to do? in your agency. You want them to grow. So please, my concern, pay them for what they're for doing what you want, not necessarily what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing here, and one that very few agents follow, is it's not the number of sales that count during the year. It's their activity. It doesn't take brain surgery to know that the most active producers are also the ones who sell most. The people who are out of the office seeing people, seeing customers or seeing prospects, they get results. Activity breeds results. A producer who's in the office every day is either a service rep, he has to be there, he's anchored to the office because he gets so many calls for policy changes and claims and things that he has to process, or he's retired and he just hasn't told you. So the best service that a producer can give is to be with his clients or his prospects. He doesn't have to be with prospects every day. He doesn't have to go out on new business every day, but he does have to go out and be with, not phone calls, be with his clients. Because when you're with your client and they like you and they respect you, they will refer others to you, and they will ask you to sell them more insurance, things that they've been nagging at them that they need, and they haven't had a chance to follow up, and you haven't followed up either.
You know, Al, I think that another thing that I'm seeing agents more and more do is do gradation of their grading their customers, which ones are the most profitable and okay, and which ones aren't. I would think that'd play an important part in this too, particularly in that first point up there where you say pay them for doing what you want, not what they want. And
George, I just was on a phone call right before this. Yep. To an agency in a southern state.
Yep.
Where he was targeting high impact individuals, high net worth clients.
Right.
And he was unfortunately servicing them just like residual clients, just like low net worth clients. And I don't want to treat anyone badly in any agency, but somebody who gives you $10,000 a year commission on a personal lines account.
Ooh.
How would you like to treat them differently? Wouldn't you like to treat them differently than someone who gives you $100 a year
Amen.
for that account?
For sure.
And because you're on the phone call with that $100 guy who's bitching and complaining that his price went up by $15 or $20, you missed the phone call from the guy who gives you $10,000 a year in commissions. That's absurd. Yes, you have to grade your clients, and you have a great program to do that. If we can get it moving and motivated to the agents, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
but the agents can do that locally, manually as well.
Yeah, I know. I guess what I'm really saying is here, to understand your agency is not as easy as it used to be, and this is pretty complicated to me. How can an agency learn it? How can an agency do it?
Well, certainly I can. There's two ways from my perspective.
Yeah.
We have these programs already in the block and on the books. I'd be happy to send them material. All they need to do is call me, and we'll send them the material that they need to understand the programs. But they are complex programs, and a lot of agents have found that they need help getting them implemented, selling the concepts to their employees as well. And of course, that's how we make our money, is by consulting with agents. I'm out with different insurance agencies every single week, and I love it.
I know you do. I don't see how you do it physically, but that's another thing. Well, I bet you.
Well, look, I'm only 35 years old.
Yeah, you just sound like you're 35 years old. Yeah, I won't comment on that now, ladies and gentlemen, because I know I can go to jail for libel and slander if I tell the truth. Here, anyhow, Al, excuse me. I think that we need to tell people about the pipeline for sure. And I see you got a subscription there to the pipeline. Let me strongly urge all of you to subscribe to the pipeline. I'll put that link into the email this week. Subscribe to that, and you're gonna, because it's the best newsletter I know that's out. It really goes right to the heart of this kind of stuff. And I think this is just the beginning of what we're going to be seeing in the future, Al. We're going to be seeing a lot more agencies understanding their agencies because of you and others, and because of obviously common sense, but we're also going to be seeing them recruit CSRs, recruit people not just for the service functions, but to handle those other accounts so that these producers can do us what they, when I say handle them even in the marketing side of things. Don't you?
Absolutely, and we have incentive compensation programs that work in tandem with our producer compensation program to incent your non-producer employees to grow the book of business as well, to service the accounts exactly the way you would if you were sitting at that desk.
That's terrific. Well, Al, listen, thank you. This is short and sweet, but that's the way we wanted to do it because it goes right to the heart of the matter. I suggested agency management, agency managers, agency owners, uh, not only take a look at this thing, but talk it over with your producers after you've made a decision. Of course, don't vote on it; you might lose the vote. But I just think it's a great way for us to think in terms of the new I don't know whatever is coming up new because everything is. Al, thanks again for
My
this.
pleasure. My pleasure.
And folks, contact him. I know Al; he responds, and he's got a great staff. And they and some of his family and others, but they are just they're very responsive. And for the rest of you, I'll see you again next Monday morning.